It's so
That's
cool to
so
see
cool.
you.
Yeah.
So I actually just finished watching the film because I was teaching last night, so I didn't have time until today to see it. And wow, like I loved it. And I couldn't get over how many things we have in common. It's kind of crazy.
I love hearing that. I love hearing
Yeah,
that.
because you and I both grew up in Israel, um,
Where did you grow up in Israel?
in Beersheba.
Okay.
Yeah, Moroccan
Wow.
Central.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then moved to New York at around age
Wow.
8.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Mm-hmm. Around the same time. You and I both went to Neve. So it was so funny to
When
see.
did you go? I
Oh,
wonder when during your journey. Like,
I was when I was in college, I was in college, and it
okay.
was so funny to see the dorms. Like it's just I was
You're
like,
like, I know those. I was like, how do I even get a good shot? You don't
yeah,
get
I was like, why did you even capture that? It was so bad
people had it has to be
to see
said. But it was like,
authentic, yeah. And then just the amount of people that we know, like we have so many mutual friends. It's
yeah,
wild.
so cool.
And then obviously the fact that we both produce documentaries and
We're the same person. We're pretty much the same person. I forget who else I told, and they were like, how do you not know Rena? I was like, we're the same person.
and you live in LA and I used to live in LA. So we basically know like 90% of the same
Yep.
people.
Yep.
So that's why I'm like so excited. It's like Hashem finally decided, okay, it's time for you to meet Becky. You need to see who this person is. But now after
Took
seeing
so
the
long.
film, I'm like, maybe I shouldn't call you Becky. Maybe I should just call you by your Hebrew name Tahel. So what do you
I
prefer?
love it. A lot of people feel that. And if you feel called to, I love that. I
And
love
what
that.
what
I
do you
really do.
what do you resonate with?
I I don't know anymore. I love to hell. Like I love when people call me that. It's my when
Yeah.
my family calls me. It's what friends that say the same thing. They're like, now that I know that that's your name, that's like who you are. Like I
Yes.
want to call you that. Like and Jewish and non-Jewish friends that find it has nothing to. They're just like that's who you are. I love that. And
Yes.
so I like to hell.
And what is Tahel actually? What does that mean?
So it comes from my mom was teaching a Chaim Bialik poem when it was Yahel was the which is I actually have a cousin Yahel, and she wanted to make it like the active version of Yahel, which
Mm-hmm.
is Tahel.
Uh-huh.
So it's like to bring light, to shine, to like illuminate, which is a very also you see it at the end of my film. It's like I'm all about these like light references and light and yeah.
Yes.
So
And
yeah,
also it's I thought it was connected to the word Tehillah.
and also Tehillah, right? Also, I mean, of course, it's like there's a lot of connection between Tahel, you see in Tehillah, in Yahel, and so definitely in Tehillah as well.
Amazing. So and also when we first got in touch, we made the connection with learning Kabbalah. At what point in your journey did that come in? Was that after your film and after your Israel trip or
No, that was
in between?
before.
That was
That was
before.
before. I feel like Kabbalah really was my like side door into Judaism. I didn't think Judaism was deep. Growing up, that wasn't an expression of Judaism that I ever came into touch with.
Yeah.
So when in LA, of course, it's like such a spiritual place and everyone's sort of like always finding something. And so when I learned about it, I was like, oh no, like it couldn't be. And I had friends that were like, you have to try, you have to come. This is so you. And so once I had a little taste, I was like, now I want to know more. And that's when I decided I have to go to Israel. Like I have to, like whatever LA has to teach me, cool. But I need to go back home to the source of this and really see what's up.
Yeah.
Uh, and
It's
so now
so
it's
sorry, go ahead.
to be honest, which is why I'm excited to learn with you because since coming back, that's been missing the deeper Kabbalah study, especially for women. Like I don't really have that, and that's like I have it for myself and I have it for my own readings and my own, but I don't have a group or a person I've been studying with actively like I used to before I went to Israel and you know before I got married and had kids and life got busy.
Yes.
So I'm like this is I've been really waiting for this.
Oh, that's awesome. So it's funny because I had like sort of like the reverse journey to Kabbalah, which was that I grew up religious.
Oh,
and
okay.
Moroccan. And so I always heard about the Zohar, always heard about Rabbi Shimon, always heard about Kabbalah, but never really had access to it. And then when I moved to LA, this is another parallel. You were an actress. I also was interested in acting, but I ended up going towards music. I moved to LA to be a singer
Wow.
and ended up like just completely it was just like a life-changing experience moving to LA, and I really became like this big social butterfly, met all my best friends there, and discovered the Kabbalah Center within like a week of moving
Whoa.
to LA. I lived around the corner
Oh,
from
wow.
there, and so it was extremely convenient for me. And what drew me to the center was like what you were saying, is like the access to the text itself. Like instead of waiting for a rabbi to teach me, the fact that I was Israeli and I could speak Hebrew and I was familiar, it was
Yeah.
amazing for me to just be able to open up the text and learn and engage with it myself versus waiting for somebody else
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
interpret for me. And that's been really it's interesting we're bringing this up, because that's really been my motivation for starting
Mm,
this podcast, is because that's my favorite way of learning Torah. Even though I've listened to many and teachers and learned from many teachers over the years, my favorite kind of learning is directly from the text, because
mm,
I really do feel like when you engage in a text, just like it says in the Talmud, that when two people come together and learn Torah, you feel the Shechina
mm.
among you. And the truth is, I can even
Wow.
feel that alone, like learning Zohar on my own, especially, is extremely connecting, where I feel like it's
Mm,
dvekas, like a very deep connection. With Zohar, especially, I don't know why, but I have a very deep soul connection to learning Zohar. And I think that a lot of people get intimidated by the text because it's so holy and so complex and so deep. And I think because I've had so many teachers, especially at the center, who were able to take the deepest of the deepest and bring it down in a way that was so tangible and so
yeah.
relevant, and in such a, I mean, my favorite teacher was Eitan. Like I cannot like love Eitan so much. Like he just got me so excited about Zohar. And if I could teach
Mm,
Zohar even at 5% level that Eitan does, I'd be like so happy. Um, and also the thing with the Zohar that I think is really cool is that I sometimes see it as like magical poetry. Like,
mhm. Yeah.
you can either approach learning Zohar as, this is too deep, I don't understand what's going on. What are they talking about here? And just surrender and just be like, you know what? Even if I don't understand, there's
Mm,
something here
yep.
for me to connect to. And
Yeah.
it's just
Nice.
like there's like different levels, right? Just like when you're learning the written Torah, there's pshat, remez, drash, sod, there's different layers. There's aspects of the Zohar that even kids could learn, like, you know
Nice.
what I'm saying? So my thing is,
I like
especially
that.
since we're gonna be learning it today, my thing is that there's no right and wrong,
Mm,
right? There's no right and wrong way to learn it. It's all about the intention, right? The kavanah is that we're learning in order to connect to Hashem, in order to raise our consciousness, in order to really tap into something deeper. Um, so that's something I want to share with you. I wanted to know, what was your experience? Have you learned Zohar before?
not much aside from, my time at the center and it being taught in that way and just sort of reading through myself and saying with that same intention of like, I don't understand much of this. And yes, there's like an interpretation, but I wish I could interpret myself a little bit better and getting a little bit more of that like literacy going on. And like of course I read Hebrew and I understand, but it's it's a challenge. So I often will read like my husband and I are reading meditation and Kabbalah, which is like just a
Yes,
trip book. Like
that
I don't understand anything. But in exactly what you said, and it's actually really validating that even when you don't understand, just let it like sort of wash over you. And like something happened. I can't explain it, but I'm just like, I don't understand this, but I'm not freaking out because I was a straight A student. Like I needed to get something. And if I didn't understand calculus, I stayed after class to like have a teacher explain it to me. Like I would need to grasp things. And with Torah and Zohar, I'm like, it's okay. Like no one's gonna be there for extra credit to like sit with me and explain because no one fully knows. So it's just like I'm letting it wash over me. And I'm like, I'm eager to be more in that on that journey and just sort of like be open to what's coming and not need to like get this answer. And you see that in my plight in the movie. It's like, well, what's the one answer? And I come out the other side saying like, there's not one answer. And like, that's beautiful.
Mhm. I love that. I think when I'm learning Kabbalah, for me, it's like food for my soul. And
Mm,
I don't see it as, I try not to approach it from the analytical,
love it.
intellectual space. I try to approach it from like the heart center and more from like a psychic space.
Love.
That
Yes.
there's something like energetically happening. And even if I don't understand what's actually happening, I can feel that something is going on there. And I know my soul is singing. It's like so happy. It's like,
That's
thank you.
it.
Thank
That's
you.
it. Love that. You know what? That's really beautiful. I wish we did more in our life with not needing to understand analytically and just knowing it's doing something good for our soul. So like, I love that.
Yeah, well, I think that a lot of Judaism is very intellectual because it's so text-based.
Yeah.
And I think that's what has always drawn me to like the mystical teachings is because it's meant to be an experience.
Mm,
And I really feel like it's code for guiding you to have an experience of God. And it's very hard to articulate these very
mm,
deep experiences. And so they're trying to get you into that space and
mhm.
somehow for you to catch it, like somehow
Yeah.
by you being in that space, you catch it, you get it, you grasp some of it. And they're not going to give it away because there's no way that they
Mm,
can do that. You can just experience it. And so it's like when
it's
you
awesome.
hang out with really smart people.
It's just in the
It's
air
in
and you're like,
the,
I feel smart. Yep.
and you
Yep.
hope that
Yep.
it rubs off on you. So
Give it to me. Yes, yes. Which is why I believe in going to Israel and we're
yes,
leaving in a week and a half. It's the same. It's like I need an infusion of Israel and it's intense. And sometimes I'm like, oh God, like, oh, this is it's overload. I've like OD'd a little bit, but it's like in the best
yes,
and necessary way. So I love that. And I love that intention. And I love also like grounding myself in that appreciation that like I'm not gonna get it all, but that's the that's the part. That's part of it. That's all of it.
amazing. So I chose a text that is relevant to the time of year because Shavuot is coming up next week, God willing, and Kabbalah calls Shavuot the mystical wedding, right? And it's the
Mhm.
time when heaven meets earth, when the Shechina is uniting with Kucha Barichu, the masculine the divine masculine with the divine feminine are joining. And this is actually like my favorite topic. And so I actually just led a meditation last night here in Miami, a Shechina meditation, and I'm going to be teaching a class on Sunday about this. So I've been like swimming
Wow.
in this
Wow.
concept this week, and I'm really excited to like get into the actual source text that talks about this, so we can actually understand, where it's coming from. So what I could do is like a screen share,
Sure. I have it
or
open as well.
you have the text in front of you?
I do, but I imagine, for the recording, if you want to share it, just so that if anybody else is watching and doesn't have it, I don't know whatever's best for you.
Yeah, let me just pull it up.
Yeah.
Hold on 1 second. There we go. Okay. So what I thought we would do is one of us would read the Aramaic, the other would read the English. I'll let you choose. What do you prefer?
I'll have you read the Aramaic for my own,
Okay.
for my own sake. Be a little,
Okay. So it's funny because from the center that it's all about like scanning the Zohar, like
yeah. I want to, can we talk about that?
yes.
Is because like, is there an innate energy just to looking, but like
Yes,
beyond just looking, like
yes,
I've heard like the word, like to utter it is really important, right? So like
sure, for
what's
sure,
the
for
deal?
sure. No, for sure. I mean, obviously, speech, it's actually the theme of today's text is about speech because
Mm,
Shechina is the Sephira of Malchut. And this podcast, actually, I decided I would call it Malchut, the Malchut podcast, because this podcast is specifically going to be for Jewish women to express themselves and to really have a platform for Jewish women to share. And so Malchut is connected to speech, right?
mhm.
And we know this because the wedding happened in the desert, and the desert Beivrit is Bamidbar, right? And Midbar is from the same sholish as Daber, to speak. So there's a lot of the Torah is about speech. You know, the importance of speech. And if you look at the stories in the Torah, all the major sins that happened in the Torah were related to lashon hara, to using speech for the negative. And so the tikkun for that is to use speech for the positive, which is through learning Torah and through davening and through words of kindness and on and on and on. But speech is an extremely important, 1 second. It's an extremely important, I just want to talk about it a little bit. It's an
Yeah.
extremely important aspect of a spiritual life because it's what separates us from the animal kingdom. That's our whole being, is that we speak, and that's what makes us like God, because God created the world through speech. And so that's how we connect to Hashem, is through our speech.
Yeah.
And in the Talmud, it says that there are 10 aspects of speech, and women got 9 out of 10, and men got
Men got how many?
1. So women got like 9. So speech is our domain.
Wait, can you tell, and I'd love a little bit more if you have any more about that. Like, what does that mean that there's 10 aspects? Like
There's
what?
9 chalakim in the words of the Talmud is 9. There's 9 chalakim. There's 9 out of 10 aspects that the women have. I didn't pick up the source, but I could find it for you in the Talmud, and it's basically, even if it's not technically true, I think they're just trying to say that we rule speech, that women dominate speech, and I think you and I both can relate that there's something very bonding about speech, and it's something that is actually an expression of the Shechina, right? Like it's all connected. Like when you're talking about the divine feminine, you're not talking about something that's separate from us. It's something that gets expressed within us. And so when we talk about, you know, that as we go towards the times of Mashiach, the rise of the feminine, that means speech, communication, technology, information. There's going to be a rise of that. And the need for that is because there's going to be a transformation in consciousness. And in order for transformation of consciousness to happen in critical mass, it has to be communicated in a big way. And that's the times that we live in, right?
Amazing. Amazing.
So
Okay.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
just wanted to share a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
You could see these, I'm like, we're hitting a lot of like my favorite topics. So I'm like really getting excited
Awesome.
about these things. All right, so let's get started. So
Okay.
this is from the Hagdama. So the Zohar has the Hagdama. Most Sfarim have Hagdamas, which is basically like an intro summary. But in the Zohar, they just dig in right away, but it's still called the Hagdama. This is verse 125 from the Hagdama. Rabbi Shimon hava yatev vela'e b'oraita. B'layla dechala itchavra bebala. Detanin kolinun chavraya divne hechala dechala. Itzrichu bahi lelia dechala izdamnat lemeheve leyoma achara Go chuppah bevala. What's great is that you get words in Hebrew here and there, so
Mhm.
you can pick up on what's happening.
Yeah.
Lemeheve ima kol hahu lelia. Lelia means Lila, like night, that night.
Mm.
Ulemechde ima betikuna dehi itakna lemil'e beoraita. Oraita means Torah. Mitorah lenevi'im unevi'im lektuvim ובמדרשות דקראה וברזה דחכמתה בגין דאילין אינון תיקונין דילה בתכשיטה ויהי ואולמתה עלת וקיימת על רישהון ויתקנת בהו וחדת בהו כל ההוא לילה וליומה אחרה לעלת לחופה אלא בהדיו. It has a rhythm. If you, when you read it out
Mhm.
loud, you hear the rhythm. It's like very poetic.
Wow.
ואילן עקרון בני חופתה, וכיוון דעלת לחופתה, קדוש ברוך הוא שאל עליו ומברך לנו, ומעטר לנו ביתרה דחלה זכאה חוקהם.
Wow. Rabbi Shimon was sitting and studying the Torah on the night when the bride, who is Malchut, was to be joined with her husband. For we have learned that all the friends who are the attendants of the bridal chamber should remain with the bride all that night. On the morrow, which is the holiday of Shavuot, the bride-to-be is prepared for the matrimonial service and to be wed to her husband. During this night, the
Hold on,
attendants...
I'll pull it up for you so it's easier to read. Hold on. Go ahead. So you said during this night.
Yeah, during this night, the attendants rejoice with her as she prepares her jewels. This refers to the study of the Torah, and from the study of the Torah to the prophets, and from the prophets to the holy writings, and then to the expositions of the scriptures, and to the inner secrets of wisdom, because these are her jewels and her adornments. And she, the bride, approaches her bridesmaids and sets herself over their heads. She is prepared by them and rejoices with them all night. The day after, in the morning of Shavuot, she does not enter under the chuppah, the marriage canopy, without them. So those friends who studied the night all night long
The Torah.
are called the canopy attendants. As she approaches the canopy, the Holy One, blessed be He, inquires after them, blesses them, and crowns them with the bridal crowns. How happy is their portion?
Have you heard of this teaching before?
About being like
The Tikkun El Shavuot?
of like studying all night, being up all night because
Yeah.
of all night study. Yeah.
But have you ever learned this particular source for it, that it was from the Zohar?
I don't think so. Maybe there was a mention of it, but I don't think so.
So I've been to a bunch of Tikkun El Shavuot, and usually it's like an all-night schmooze with cheesecakes everywhere.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, like in New York, I grew up, it would be like all the shuls would have all night learning, and then you hop
Yeah.
from shul to shul.
Yeah, we had
eat
that too
cheesecake.
here.
But I would say probably the most meaningful Tikkun El Shavuot I ever had was in Yerushalayim, which is in magic, like just the whole city. It's like middle of the night,
Wow.
and the whole city is alive, and people are like going from shir to shir, just learning the whole night, chasing Torah learning, and it's just so it's so magical. Why do you think this is so important? Why do you think it needs to be done at night?
That's the interesting part for me. I mean, I had always, and I don't know where I learned this or what the source. I'm admittedly less of like the exact source person and more like I learned this. So I'm also interested to retain sources and have that in my back pocket. But that is a holy time at night. So like, the Kabbalists would wake up like after midnight to study. And I'm not exactly sure why and what's available at that time. But I think there's also like, it just seems like there's a peace and quiet at that time that's not available during the hours of the day. So I just imagine something about like night and the moon and lunar and like that element, that aspect must be a better breeding ground for Torah study. I don't know. That's just like my intuition. No idea.
No, I agree. I agree. And I think especially as mommies who stay up breastfeeding or feeding your kids, you know what it's like to be up in the middle of the night and the energy of the nighttime, right? That
Yeah.
especially when daytime is so hectic and so busy, it's like so calming to be up. Like sometimes I wake up at like 4 a.m. I can't go back to bed, and I'll just automatically open up the Zohar or a book or something. And that was a practice that I picked up when I was at the center, because it was not an individual thing, it was a group thing that we would all get up in the middle of the night to learn. And there's something really special about doing that. The other thing I wanted to add was the divine wedding metaphor is really also represented with Knesset Israel. Knesset Israel means the assembly of Israel. And so what the Shechina is not just like this abstract divine feminine aspect, it's really tied to the Jewish people. That the wedding is really connected to our marriage contract that we're going into with Hashem at Har Sinai, that the Torah is the ketubah, the Torah is the what binds us to Hashem, and there's no getting out. There's no you're in. That's it. There's like
no divorce.
There's no divorce, you know? And so that's when I read this section, that's what it captures for me. I mean, besides the visuals of like a queen getting ready for her wedding and getting, you know, jewels and crowns and getting pretty for the wedding, it's really connected to the fact that what we're doing here in the lower world has importance in the spiritual world. And I think that that's a very powerful teaching of Kabbalah and the Zohar specifically, is this concept that it's called theurgy, Theurg. And what that word means is that we here, the physical actions in this world can have an impact on the spiritual world, and vice versa, that it's like a cycle that is interconnected. So it's not like your actions here are separate from what's happening there. Whatever you do down here impacts what's there. And the masculine is connected to sustenance, right? That everything that we get is coming, and we're completely reliant on Hashem. And that's why we're in the feminine role. Like Hashem is the mashpia, and we're the mekabel. That's why we're called the feminine. Let's continue. Okay, next pasuk, 126. V'hava Rabbi Shimon v'chulu chavrayu meranenin b'rina d'oraita u'mechadshin milin d'oraita kol chad v'chad minayu v'hava chadeh Rabbi Shimon v'chol sh'ar chavrayu amar lo Rabbi Shimon banai zaka'al chulkechen begin de'lemachar lo te'ol kala l'chupa ela behadayachu begin dechulu demitaknin tikuna behai leila v'chadain ba kuhun yehun reshimin uktivin besifra dedecharanya v'kadosh baruch hu mevarechon besav'in b'chain v'yitrin dalma ila'a.
And Rabbi Shimon and all the friends were chanting the songs of the Torah. Every one of them brought forth a new discovery about the Torah, and Rabbi Shimon was rejoicing together with all the friends. Rabbi Shimon said to them, "My sons, how happy is your lot, because tomorrow the bride shall not approach the bridal canopy without you. Because all those who prepare the adornment of the bride during this night and rejoice with her shall all be written and registered in the book of remembrance. And the Holy One, blessed be he, blesses them with 70 blessings and crowns from the upper world." What does that mean? Book of like this,
right. Like, what are your thoughts about this Sifra, the book of remembrance? What does that bring up for you?
I mean, it's just about like it reminds me of, you know, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. It's like to be inscribed in the book of life.
Yes.
Like, what is that book? I've always like, what we say that, and I'm like, what am I being inscribed in? Is it a book? Is it like that we're all a letter?
It's about, it's, you know, like, I don't know how old your kids are, but I don't know if do you do charts with your kids?
No, I have 2.5 and 10 months. So
you're not there yet. You'll get to that stage very soon.
Okay.
I'm sure. Okay. So you know how you do charts with your kids, and it's a way to get them to stay on track. that,
Yeah.
you give
Worth
them
it.
points, whatever, it's a chart system. So when the kids learn that their actions have value, they're more likely to think twice before they do something. And that's how I think that, a lot of times people think that God needs to be unconditional love. It's not about unconditional love. Conditional love is actually very good. It's very good to have conditional love, because what happens is it allows you to understand that your actions matter. Because if unconditional love was the case,
Wow.
then
Wow.
everything would be acceptable, everything would be okay, everything would be forgiven.
Yeah, you're right. There's some boundary. It's boundary love in that way. Interesting. Very interesting.
Right. So there is love, but it's
Yeah.
conditional. So it's chesed, meaning Hashem loves us. That's why our actions matter to Hashem. But it's with gevura, meaning like there needs to be boundaries, right? And so that's what I take away from that part about the book, is that our actions matter and what we do matters. And it matters so much that it would be written in the book of life, right? Like this is such, they're overemphasizing how important this night is. And I just learned today from one of my teachers, one of my favorite teachers is Rabbi Pinson, Dovber Pinson. And he was talking about how whenever you want to heal something in your life, you should always look for that situation in the Torah. And by reading the words of the Torah about that situation, it'll activate that energy in your life.
Amazing.
I love that. So he was saying how that when someone needs parnasa, right? Like needs abundance, there's a custom to read the portion of the Torah that talks about the manna coming down. Why? Because
Wow.
it's showing that we're completely dependent on Hashem for everything, for our sustenance, right? So by reading that, you're activating that emunah that it's coming. You don't need to store it because they didn't have refrigerators in the desert. So every day is a new day of. So anyway, so what I'm saying is the energy during the time of Har Sinai was an energy that had never been revealed in the world before. It's like the peak, and then we still talk about it. It's been thousands of years, and we're still talking about something that happened thousands of years ago. And so the Zohar is saying, like, this was a big deal, and you have to understand what actually was happening there. And for me, I love this teaching so much because it's showing how Hashem so much wants to be in relationship with us.
Yeah.
That the sweetest, it's just like you ended your film with the wedding. It was like the sweetest. I was like, that's like the sweetest way to end any movies with the wedding. I love that so much. But
So
like,
relevant now. Yeah.
right? It's just like when you think of a wedding, you think of like, wow, it's there's so much joy, there's so much love, there's so much fruit that's going to come out of this union. And that's why that metaphor was used, is because Hashem wants to come into this world. Hashem doesn't want to be separate from us. Hashem created this world in order to be together with us. And that the way that we can actually experience that is through the Torah. And the Zohar is saying Torah is the key that unlocks the relationship.
No. Wow. Beautiful.
Let's see how much more we have. How much more time do you have?
I think I have another 20.
Okay, so let's see the next one. This one is already similar to what we learned before. Let me see the next one.
Okay.
One second. Okay, let's scroll down to verse 131. Because the previous paragraphs, they're just overemphasizing the same concept. The Zohar does that a lot, like it's super repetitive. You'll be like, I got this, like the first page.
Right. Which and that is also really interesting when that happens. And I know it's like, okay, so this is really important, but is there something new here? Is it just by like reading it again? It's like if you missed it, here it is again and again and again. And that's the intention.
Yeah, well, what's interesting, oh, I forgot, I wanted to share this with you about the previous paragraph we read. There was a section there where Rabbi Shimon says that everyone was sharing a new Torah. And I think that that's actually one of the things I wanted to talk about, because it's one of the things that is really important for me when I learn with another person is, yeah, I've learned Torah for a long time. And yes, I've learned it from lots of teachers, but I don't like to copy and paste.
Mm.
I really feel like it's super important to engage Torah learning from the perspective of like what's new.
Yeah.
You know, like, and that each one of us has like a very unique Torah to share that's unique to our generation, our time, our way of thinking, our way of interpreting, and that you need to really be excited when you learn Torah to be like, what here resonates
Mhm.
with me and what does it bring up for me, versus being like, oh, what does Rashi say? Like one of my teachers taught me, Kodem Roshi ve'achar kach Rashi.
I love that. Wow, I love that. I think it also takes some vulnerability and like not just regurgitating what you already know. And because that's how I used to be. It's like, oh, because it's scary to be like, I don't know anything. So I'd say like, here are the things I know. Look, look, look. And now, and I've learned to just be like, it's okay to not know. That's a vulnerable space. And I'll just be like, I'll sort of clear myself and like be open to receiving and trusting that I'll receive something. And especially, and you're right, there's a like a special chemistry with each person you study. So I feel like and so there's a chemistry happening, and that's going to bring new things that like me, myself, or me with my husband, or me with my teacher, me with my other friend wouldn't have necessarily been the vessel for. So I hear that, and it's a good reiterating of that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've also found that there are certain times of the week or the year
Mm.
where I feel like there's more flowing in than normal. Like Shabbat, when I learned Torah
Oh
on
yeah.
Shabbat,
It's like everything. So I'm like, where am I? Yeah.
you know, it's
Yeah.
incredible. And also the thing is because I teach a lot, what I've learned is that sometimes it's okay to not have the answers.
Mm.
You know, that it's okay to just ask the question,
That's it.
you know, and maybe the question you'll find out the answer by talking to your chavruta, or maybe you'll just put it out into the universe and eventually you'll get the answer, you know.
Yep. Yep.
um Hold on, I just need to go to a spot to charge. So I was thinking, because we have about like another 15 minutes left, that we talk about the Shechina in general. I have a few concepts that I wanted to run by you,
Yeah.
and to um, see what your thoughts are. Hold on.
Love that. No problem.
Obviously, the Zohar talks a lot about the Shechina, and it's like a theme that
Mm.
flows throughout Kabbalah. It's actually one of the biggest contributions of Kabbalah is this teaching of the feminine, since so much of Torah doesn't
Yeah.
really connect Hashem in the feminine, right?
Right.
Does that
Right.
bother you, by the way? Because it bothers me a lot.
I'm not, I, I'm more of the person that just accepts and is like, I wonder why, but I believe there's more to it.
Yeah.
Um, and I think again, you're more actively teaching and expressing this. So I'm sure like if, that there'd be more to get upset about if I was more active in it. But I think like for me, I do just accept that there's an intelligence to that. And the intelligence is that what you're saying is there's actually not just a masculine. There's the hidden feminine, which is now being revealed more. But I think that's where like for me to make sense of it, it's like I guess it wasn't ready to be revealed before. So all of the writings and all of the things are very masculine because it was relevant. That's how it had to be expressed. And the sod and the like the pnimiut of it was like more of the feminine, which is now we're more ready for it, which makes sense. I see
Beautiful.
historically on that track. So I'm less
Yeah.
like I'm just like I'm trying to be the extension of the feminine that like expresses that in the world and shows that and shows that there's an access to that.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. I need to remind myself of that, like I honor the things that bother me because I feel
Great.
like that it's bothering me for a reason. I'm supposed
Yep.
to dig deep with that. But I really love what you're saying, which is 100% right on. By the way, I've learned this from my other teachers too, where they say there's a time for everything. And there was a time in history where the masculine had to rule. And it was part of a plan of where we're moving forward. By the way, I don't know if I told you that I'm working on another documentary now that is connected to this whole idea of Mashiach and the rising of the feminine and all that kind of stuff. So
I'm here for it. I love that.
stay tuned for
I
that.
love that.
um, what I was going to ask you is when you connect to Hashem, do you connect in the sense that, the way that in like the prayer books, Avinu Malkeinu, it's always as the Father. Have you ever connected to Hashem from the place of, our mother, our
I have.
queen, our mother,
I
like,
have. Yeah.
tell me about that because I know in our davening on Shabbat, we always say when we sing the Chadodi and we say Boi Kala and Shabbat Makata, there's references to the queen and there's references to the feminine. But how, other than that, I mean, is that something that you've resonated with, or I want to hear more about that?
I love that question. It's just such a beautiful question. I don't have a ton of answers, but I want to keep walking with that question because that's actually inviting it. This is an exact example of asking a question that suddenly is inviting an experience. Because suddenly I'm like experiencing things that before the question was asked, I did not. In my own experience of Hashem. So generally, and my experience of Hashem has shifted so much. I've always had, and I feel like this is a blessing of being Moroccan. I've always heard it that we have like this, there's just a gift from our ancestry of like having just a simple connection to Hashem.
Right.
And whatever,
Emunah Pshuta.
it's just like really
Yes.
so beautiful. And
Yes.
so I grew up with this sort of felt experience and a lot of talk as well of like God and Hashem. And
Yes.
so it was always like,
A
a very
feeling.
felt experience.
Yes.
I would say there's a couple moments, and I'm thinking back, I'm like, I remember I gave birth in the back of the car on the way to the hospital
Oh my goodness.
because this child,
Your first child?
my
Oh, your
second.
second. Okay, that makes sense.
The first took her time. The second, I had, and it was like both came on their due date. It was the night before my due date, and I knew I was like, this baby's coming, but I need like a meditation. I asked my doula if she had any specific sort of like meditations for birth, and so she sent over one, and it was this like orange orb where you like send it. Basically, I worked with this orb, and the
Yeah.
orb like took any sensation, like any discomfort, we'll say, because it's always about just easing that, right? The contractions and the sensation of that. And that was very feminine. Like to me, like Hashem, working with Hashem during birth, feels like that was like Hashem's my doula, and it's very feminine, it's very maternal. And I also feel like that's probably why it was such a quick and painless. I didn't know I was really fully, the baby was in my birth canal, basically ready to go. And I'm still here. And I'm like, oh, my husband's like, you're there. I was like, I didn't think those were contractions.
Wow.
So that I think there's a real, but then at birth, I like in the back of the car, we're going down my husband's like speeding down Lindley on the way. And I like yell out the Shema, but in that point is like the doctor, that was masculine. There's something about like birthing that suddenly I was like masculine. I was no longer, I don't know, like the process was very maternal and like very feminine. And like at birth, it was like Hashem, Father, like Abba, like help there.
Wow.
And there was I have like chills as I'm saying it. And then there's another time, I hope this is kosher to share. It was a psychedelic experience. It was one of my first in that capacity. And it was like a very beautiful space with many people who also study Kabbalah and were very, mystical about the experience. But, there is this plant medicine is called that, like, there's a lot of feminine connections to that plant.
Mm-hmm.
So I just remember being in the experience, and there was a feminine, I don't know if it was a voice or a presence. And she was essentially like showing me how everything that was happening throughout my life was divinely orchestrated. And it was very much like a mom, like, see this? I was there. That was for you. And you remember this?
Oh,
Gamze, you know? And so it was like,
wow.
that was very much a mom or a grandma, like very maternal. So in those very, and I guess in both of those were very out of body psychedelic, even like giving birth, I was very out of body, though I was very in my body, I was very out of my body as well.
Mhm.
Those two, I would say.
Wow. Both incredible experiences. It's interesting when you were talking about your ancestors. It brought up a lot for me because I do feel like a lot of and it's in your film too. Like when you go back to
Yeah.
the shul where your grandparents used to daven and you had all those memories. I also have that. I have very strong memories with my grandparents who were also religious. And I think about that a lot. You know, I went to a healer once. I was dealing with like fertility stuff and it was very intense. And I went to a healer to just like work through it. And he was like, you know, your maternal grandmother is with you and
Wow.
she's watching over you. And my grandmother, my maternal grandmother had like over 13 kids, you know, and I think that um I believe like they're with us, you know, our ancestors. And I learned once from one of my teachers, I can't remember, I learned so much, it's hard for me to keep track of
I
who says what.
that's my issue. It's like I learned this thing. I don't know from where.
I don't remember from where, but I learned once that
Hmm.
when we do a tikkun on something that was generationally handed down to us, that it doesn't just heal us and obviously our future descendants because we're breaking a cycle, but that it also works upwards, meaning it heals the previous generations because here
Whoa.
you were thinking that your life is your life and it's just you right now, but that we're part of a chain that I mean, this is basically ancestral healing, right? The Jewish version that when you do like for as an example, if you grew up in a culture or a community or family where anger was like the MO, you know, and
Yeah.
and yep, and then you catch yourself in situations and you're like, I'm working on this, I'm going to try to change this. Da, da, da. When you do that and you break that cycle, it's healing in both directions. And if you see yourself as part of that chain, you know, it's really, really powerful. It gives your life so much more meaning than just being about what you do for yourself, you know, which I love so much. I also want to hear more about that psychedelic experience, if you don't mind. What was the intention behind doing that? What was it? You wanted to heal something in
Yeah.
particular? Was
Yeah.
it to have a mystical experience? What was the motivation?
The motivation, I just come out of a relationship and I felt like I was repeating patterns. And anytime I see a repeating pattern that's destructive, for you know, I want to heal something there. Like there's why am I finding myself in the same situation where I can't like own my voice and speak for what I need and manifest my highest potential in the form of love and partnership that I want? It's like I'm being blocked. And every so often, you know, this sort of ended when I had children, but like every so often when I would be stuck, it'd be like either I get like and I haven't had one in a while, but a reading, I'd get like an astrological reading or something. I needed some divine insight. So
Yeah.
it'd be like an astrological reading, or I'd go to a healer. So I needed something mystical, which always
Yes.
felt like, you know, I know my family would be like, oh, you're so LA. But I needed something beyond the logical, beyond my life coach, beyond the therapist.
Yeah.
Like I needed the beyond. And
Yes.
um and that had been circulating. Like I had never, you know, I had like tried mushrooms once with my sister in Amsterdam because that's what everyone does when they go and
Right.
college, you know, and it was like very wild. And it was the first time that I had it outside of my own body experience. And that was really freeing in that way. But it wasn't within the container of healing. It was just like, here, this can happen.
It was a
And
new
that
experience. Yeah.
It was an experience, and it was a necessary one for me, especially as a very heady person, to be like, there's more than just your head. That was wonderful, but that's all it was. So now it was like, oh, I can use this in the context of healing, and it be guided by somebody that I trust and has these insights. Let's try that. And that kavanah again was the whole kivun. It really like
Yes.
created what I got. And there was a beautiful integration after where I tracked how like my intention was to heal what happened in this relationship, but also just heal, just come to terms with many fears that I had about like death, about myself and who I really am, about my ability to manifest my highest desires, in all of that, like all of what I
All
was
in one session?
all in one session.
Wow, that's
It
very
was a long
powerful.
session, but
Yeah.
it all, and it continued to deliver. I mean, gosh, that week after it was like a lot
Everything's
continued.
open.
So open. It was so beautiful. And it's still, I still remember very powerful moments. And I feel like for me in times where my relationship with Hashem is very transactional and very just robotic, like we're just doing the same things, he and I, it's like we're just, it's like it's same with my marriage when it gets sort of like, oh, the kids and this and this, and I have to tell my husband like, it's becoming, I'm so sorry that it's like we're just running around with our business and our kids, and I
Conscious.
like,
You need to be conscious.
I want to like just, and that's where those moments of gratitude and like I tap back to that experience, like just like I tap back to my wedding with my husband. It's like, let's just, I just want to like remember, oh, okay, I'm there, and I'll do that with that experience. I'll be like, oh, I'm getting really bound to the physical. My grandmother passed away and I flew to bury her. And it was like just so, and I remembered back to that experience of when I was in this vacuum of black above the earth. And I was like, oh, this is where my soul goes when I die. Okay.
And that gave you comfort.
Peaceful. It just gives me comfort in those moments where I'm like, a felt experience,
Yes. No, that's huge. What a gift that is. Wow. I feel like I could talk to you for hours, but I want
Please,
to
well,
be
let's keep
let's keep
to be
doing this.
continued parts 3, 4, and 5.
Yes, please. This was super fun. Obviously there's a lot more we can learn, but I felt like for the first time I wanted to just like, give a bit of a taste of it. I do think that with the Zohar, it doesn't always come down to like a practical, here's what you do, or here's,
Right.
it's like,
Right.
it doesn't always have the takeaway. Sometimes it's like poetry or like, science fiction or whatever. And you expose yourself to new ideas, new concepts, and then you sit with it. You just sit with it. And then it's a lot like, not like, I wouldn't say like a psychedelic experience, but if there were ever a psychedelic text, I would say the Zohar is pretty much,
Well, I mean, at the end of my like coaching sessions with my life coach, she's like, okay, so what are action steps and what have you taken from today? And they're usually like, here. But if I think about it now, if you were to ask me, okay, so what are action steps? What have you taken from here? It's all felt. It's like, well, I remember it was, so you said like how Hashem really wants to be in this here in this relationship with us. And so like that was a very felt experience for me where I'm like, yeah, I really need to be inviting more. And I'm going to read the part about manna, and because that's what my company name is. We're all about it's
oh wow, okay.
Mana. We go by mana, but it's manifest with
Yes.
MANA.
Oh, I love that.
On mana. And so it was a very, very felt experience. And then also the question that you opened of where is there the masculine and feminine relationship with Hashem and those aspects that come into play, and like being very just attuned to that, like being open to feeling, oh, I'm having, there's the Shechina, like there's that like feminine relationship, and just being in that question and inviting more of that. Like I am walking away with a lot of action steps. Actually, they're felt experiences, but there's definitely some questions to walk with and experiences to continue to call in. And I think that's the most powerful thing.
I also think I love that. Thank you for saying that. I also wanted to share because I do follow you on socials and you post a lot on your kids. I feel like I know your kids.
Oh my God. Those poor,
like,
that's
no,
okay.
it's fine.
You're gonna grow up and be like, take me off.
Yeah. I love it. No, I was gonna say, I mean, your kids are still very little, but I can tell you from my experience, not that my kids are much, they're like a bit older, that my relationship with Hashem has changed a lot since having children, in the sense that I understand a lot of like things that I learned in Torah from the perspective of a parent.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, again, they're doing this, again, they're not listening, again, they're not, like it really, if you see Hashem as the parent and us as the child, you're like, wow, we're really messing up as children,
Yeah, I appreciate that too, is to look at, to kind of, yeah. And that's a real chidush of like everything I've learned, not as a single woman, but as a married parent. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, there's a lot to be learned by being a parent, and just also obviously through marriage. There's so much that Hashem is teaching us through those relationships, and then when you take that experience and then look at what Hashem is saying to us, you're like, okay, now I get it. I understand.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
this was such a joy. It was
Thank
so
you
nice
so
to finally
much.
meet you.
Thank you. I'm so glad it worked out.
Me too.
And
Finally, we
no, you
figured
meant
out.
to.
Yeah.
And I'd love to do it again. It's
Okay.
just really, really special. Thank you for creating this space and for inviting me into it. And I'm here to support and to come back anytime.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, we'll be in touch. Talk to you
Thank you.
soon. Okay,
Thank you,
bye.
sister. Bye.
Bye.